From Genesis, God created man and woman.
Homosexuality is detestable to God. It brought destruction to Sodom and Gomorrah.
Because women are supposed to fulfill the men's need, and the men are supposed to fulfill the women's need.
If that's how they were born, I give them the rights.
I don't care about, what someone decides to do for himself or herself.
We all have choices, and like a person, you need to do what you feel is right and what you really want.
My name is David Kato. I work with Sexual Minorities in Uganda as the Advocacy and Litigation Officer. The law that is still criminalizes homosexuality, so it's really hard. The moment you become visible, then your life is at a risk. Anytime you are arrested, you are detained, you end up in prison. So it's not an easy type of work.
I think the issue of homosexuality in general is very, very sensitive in Uganda because that's the way society is. I mean, Uganda is generally, the greater majority of the people are Christians. So that means they are either Catholics or Anglican Christians or Pentecostals, which, as you know, Christianity does not accept homosexuality. And we are generally a more conservative Christian community. The other issue is, I think, cultural, because even people who are not Christians, people who are Muslims, they abhor homosexuality. It is not acceptable in my traditional African culture. It is something to be really, really frowned upon.
Homosexuality is something which we think is abnormal, it's not right in our society, and is something which, as Ugandans, we completely abhor and we shun, and is a taboo in our society.
We do not support this bill as Uganda Law Society. But that is not to mean that we support or encourage the practice of homosexuality. No. We do not support the bill for different reasons. And one of the main reasons is because of the draconian nature of the sanctions regime suggested in this bill. And therefore, for instance, we don't support death penalty and the other penalties being suggested.
Criminalized promotion of homosexuality. So this one is like it's going to prevent even talking about health services. How does someone prevent himself from having HIV? Even service providers are going to be refused because they'll be arrested that they are promoting homosexuality. So their freedom of association, opinion, speech, action, they're all being to be hindered.
For doctors and priests and counselors, again, this bill is going to make their job even more difficult, because every time they come to you for counseling, you'll have again to report them to the police, and you'll have to even give information of what they were talking to you about. So you'll have to break the client counselor or client doctor or even client priest confidentiality. It is actually an abuse to professionalism.
If I'm to be made to begin to sneak into people's homes, into people's bedrooms, into people's privacy, I think that is a horrendous duty being put on the population.
Legally speaking, I mean, we have inherited, the colonial laws as were handed down by the colonial masters, who are the British, of course. And so we have inherited, I think, a lot of the English common law. And as you know, homosexuality was illegal even in England until some time when they had to abolish the sodomy laws. So while the West has generally moved on and abolished the sodomy laws, we haven't moved on.
Africa, most of the countries in Africa, they have got these sodomy laws because of the colonialism that the British brought all these laws And then also the Muslims, also Muslim countries, they have almost the same sodomy laws. But now that Ugandan policymakers, they want to set a precedent, that means if this bill comes into law, all other countries are going to come up.
Because of the British colonialism, all those countries who had the British colonial, they still have it in the constitution that gay, if you are caught to be gay, you are life imprisonment.
There is a lot of emotion, a lot of cultural reaction on this issue. And especially, and most important of all, it diverts the attention of the leaders from small issues, because homosexuality is not a transcendent, big relevance issue in Uganda.
More than a third of the population living below the official poverty line. We still have millions of children who do not complete primary school education. We still have, nearly 435 women out of every 100,000 who give birth, they would die because of pregnancy-related causes. So we still have many, many problems. So you feel we probably should be focusing the national debate on those issues?
Well, we do support the bill in principle because it is seeking to safeguard our children and to protect our society from the negative effects of homosexuality.
I think there's a lot of hypocrisy in all this, and Pharisaism, you know. We point fingers at people, homosexuals who are living together, and we think, they are evildoers. But then we say nothing about people who are married and go around spoiling families and breaking up families. And we say nothing about the abuses of children in the families, abusing of little girls as young as 7 years old. We say nothing about that.
Pastor Semper showing pornography in church, this is one of their strategies of creating more homophobia and hate in the public against gay people. So they should have arrested him and became answerable because even young children were in that church.
Time to do a little research to know what homosexuals do in the privacy of their bedroom. One of the things they do is called anal leaking, where a man's anus is leaked. When you have a law against homosexuality, do you say except eating poo-poo? I mean, look at this guy sincerely. Bishop, staggerful. We do not want this sickness. This is sick and it's therefore deviant. We do not want it.
If you're a priest, a religious leader, and you say you're fighting homosexuality in Uganda, you claim it disgusts you. Where do you get the guts to go on the internet and download those videos?
I know that he is trying to safeguard the community. He's trying to safeguard our children. He's trying to protect the country from being corrupted by this thing. So if he chooses to use certain means, I cannot be the one to judge him and say, okay, don't do this or don't do that. But he's free to do what he wants.
You're not allowed to practice homosexuality. You're not allowed to protect homosexual people. You're not allowed to promote the idea of homosexuality. Martin Semper, as we call him, I mean, he's a born-again, he's a Pentecostal preacher. He's very opposed to homosexuality, and he's very, very outspoken. Honorable David Bahati, the Member of Parliament who tabled this bill, is carrying out the work that other people like Semper and Stephen Langer have been doing in churches.
The pastors, with their own agenda from America, with the evangelicals, that they have started all this havoc for gay people.
It's a threat to our traditional family and the children of Uganda. But what is happening as we speak now, there's a lot of recruitment by foreigners into this behavior of homosexuality.
David Bahati, no one knew him, that he was even a member of parliament, until he came out, oh, this is a homosexual. They just want this cheap fame.
The people who are discussing this bill, they know nothing about gay people. They know nothing about sexual orientation. So whatever they are doing in a bill is just to help themselves. Sometimes I think people, they are doing it just to gain popularity for the votes because the election is due to 2011.
It's not normal practice, normal conduct, behavior for anybody to do those things. God made an arrangement and that arrangement has served us very well. Why do we want to change it? We want to encourage the Parliament of Uganda to pass the Anti Homosexuality Bill without any further delay. That bill should be priority number one. Let's get it out of the way. Clearly, it is about protecting Ugandans. It is about stopping homosexuals from promoting this vice.
A lot of the anti-gay campaign in Uganda, and in particular the Anti-Homosexuality Bill, is being fueled and driven by the influence of right-wing homophobic evangelists from the United States.
We've decided the Bible is the Word of God. We don't have to have a general assembly about what we believe. It's written in the Bible. All right? So we don't have to debate about what we should think about homosexual activity. It's written in the Bible.
They went out to Uganda and stirred up anti-gay hatred. They went there and represented homosexuality as a threat to Uganda's way of life. They spread a whole lot of lies and poison about gay people, pandering to the worst prejudices. They convinced some gullible Ugandans that gay people are a threat, and as a result we now have this anti-homosexuality bill and a wave of preachers from all faiths attacking and denouncing gay people in the most lurid, sensationalist and even almost violent form.
If we read our holy book, the Quran, teaching us that the punishment of homosexuality, it is death.
Well, cases of violence and abuse here in Uganda, they're numerous, there are very many. Most of them happen, and some of us activists in organizations, mainly like Icebreakers, the community-based organization, we don't get to know about them, but they're there.
I don't believe that homosexuality is a human right. Homosexuality is actually something that is wrong. It is something that is against the law, something against nature, and something against the law of the land and the law of God.
Homosexuality is a moral issue. It is a moral issue. It has never been a human rights issue.
My understanding of human rights and your understanding of human rights and somebody else's understanding of human rights may vary. And therefore, there is still need for further debate as to whether or not the question of practices like homosexuality is a human rights issue or not.
Any abuse of human rights obviously is abuse, so therefore we don't accept it. But we must stand for the human rights of everybody.
I've been beaten a number of times. Then I was detained and charged of sodomy, which case is still going on in High Court in Uganda. Then when we went out to deny that we are not recruiting, I was beaten that night and my arm got broken.
Some people are being chased out of their houses because of their orientation, and people are being beaten. People are being jailed, they're detained in jails, and I think like 2 people have died.
I left Uganda because I didn't want to end up in a prison. Now I'm in the UK, I'm in a prison, and I didn't know anybody, I didn't have friends, I didn't know what to do. At that time, I was thinking, what can I do? And the only thing I was like, whatever comes, I'll go with it. And the next thing I was thinking, I'm going to be deported back to Uganda.
I come from a very staunch religious family, so I've been taking it a little bit slow. But I think my cousin is wanting to rape me has been the worst harassment I've gotten.
We're simply asking the government of Uganda to respect the human rights conventions that it has signed and to also respect its own laws and constitution which guarantee equality and non-discrimination.
Homosexuality lifestyle is one that is very prone to sickness. A lot of diseases are in there. Now, if you become sick, you are affecting society. The society is going to miss your input.
If HIV spreads faster in that group, and then we see this movement bringing this practice into our society and communities, then it can also mean that the rate of HIV spread would be high.
People blaming it for the spread of HIV, I think that is more in anticipation rather than in a statement of what exists here, because it's largely a heterosexual community here. So whatever cases of HIV there have been, the very, very significant majority of them will have been heterosexual.
And for me, my recommendation is that if somebody has those feelings, that you feel you're attracted to people of the same sex, then go for help. Because help is available, and help can be possible so that you can be helped to get out of it. So that's what I would recommend to somebody like that.
Or people, they claim that it's unnatural to be homosexual. And who makes it to be so natural to be heterosexual? That's the question I have for them.
How do you define unnatural? Unnatural is the way the society has come to define it, which goes back to the very specific gender roles.
Being gay is not a choice. Being gay is not like you can copy it from somebody. Being gay is not that you can give somebody money to become gay. Being gay is just nature.
In the West, homosexuality is regarded as inborn, as a condition that's normal, and there's nothing abnormal about it. I totally disagree with that, because there's no conclusive scientific study that concludes that homosexuality is inborn.
One of the most famous pieces of research on sexuality ever done, demonstrated, was that there is a huge range of sexual preference. That some people, if you like to use our contemporaneous terms, they're completely straight. And then there are another bunch of people who are completely gay. But lots of us are somewhere in the middle.
A man cannot go to a man. God created Adam and Eve, whereby they have to marry each other.
All of us, we are together to fight that habit of homosexuality.
Clearly there are a range of religious attitudes from a range of religions that suggest that any homosexual act is bad, and arguably that being gay is almost a state of sin.
God did something to show that He's above all, to show that He's all-powerful, to show that He will never fail. There is no any other God on His side, to show that He's the greatest.
It's extremely difficult to have open discussions about sexual preference and sexual practice in a society where the law is telling you that what you might want to do breaks the law, and there might be some very serious sanctions for that.
And let those homosexuality be killed as the bill was prepared.
And therefore society has a responsibility, and our leaders have the responsibility, and we as parents have the responsibility to do whatever is necessary to protect the society from the negative effects of homosexuality.
In Africa, sodomy is an abomination, a taboo, and an evil. No!
As religious leaders and lawmakers stood united in support of the anti-gay bill, Uganda appeared to be on the verge of adopting one of the harshest anti-gay laws in the world.
We may disagree about gay marriage, but surely we can agree that it is unconscionable to target gays and lesbians for who they are, whether it's here in the United States or, as Hillary mentioned, more extremely and odious laws that are being proposed, most recently in Uganda.
There's no doubt that international pressure from donor countries which give aid to Uganda, and from big international figures like Archbishop Desmond Tutu and President Barack Obama, are having an influence on the Ugandan government. It is forcing a rethink.
in my view, not be correct for any country, whether America or any other power for that matter, to twist less powerful nation to take certain positions, even when they are not homegrown and we feel we are part of those positions.
The very large amounts of money that are given to Uganda and indeed neighbouring countries as budgetary support for their government, where there's no control over how that money is spent. It is simply paid into government coffers and they spend it as they will.
They can keep the money to themselves. For us, our values as Ugandans is more important than any amount of money, and we cannot compromise our values for some money.
The bill is now passing through a democratic process under the sovereign state of the Republic of Uganda, but has received a lot of undemocratic criticism. Threats to cut aid have been made and blackmail from governments that claim to be the architects and custodians of democracy in the world.
We have rape, we have corruption, we have a lot of so many problems in Uganda that really need attention than the homosexuality.
Obviously, if you gave me a choice, if you have two homosexual people locked up in a room somewhere, why should police be wasting resources running after them instead of going to investigate public officials, ministers and civil servants who have been stealing hundreds of millions of Uganda shilling, which money should be going to help the poor people?
That's how homosexuality should be treated. It's something which is wrong, it's something which is against the law, against nature, against society. So there's no reason why it should be treated with kid gloves while other crimes are treated as crimes.
Gays and lesbians can be jailed for up to 14 years for engaging in homosexual acts. Although no one has ever been convicted, a bill recently tabled in Parliament could push the jail term to life imprisonment and the death penalty.
Hang them. The headline, a call to action.
The headline, I used it because it's shocking. It was going to attract attention. The evils associated with homosexuality are underemphasized. We thought by publishing that story, the police would investigate them, would prosecute them, and hang them.
Several activists who sued Uganda's Rolling Stone newspaper for publishing photographs and personal details of homosexuals.
But a Ugandan court has ordered a newspaper that called for homosexual people to be hanged to stop publishing the names and photographs of people it said were gay.
The Media Council in Uganda has suspended the paper, but only because it wasn't registered. The editor says that as soon as it's relaunched, he will continue his campaign against gays.
Pope Benedict has criticised the Equality Bill currently going through Parliament, claiming it violates the natural law. Church leaders are said to be worried that the bill might expose them to legal challenges if they refuse to employ openly gay people or transsexuals.
Since Pope Benedict was elected almost 5 years ago, he's looked out over Europe and watched in dismay as country after country has steadily removed the Church's privileges and weakened its influence. Now he fears the Equality Bill, currently going through Parliament in Westminster, could force the Roman Catholic Church to employ gay people in senior positions, such as youth leaders and head teachers.
We are here, we are proud, we need to be included into government programs, for example, HIV. I can't keep on fighting in the closet, hiding. I have to face the reality. I tell them what I really feel about issues. There's no need of me just hiding. I'm feeling a bit panicked, but I have no alternative if I'm to liberate my community.
Last week, a man was beaten to death with a hammer in his home.
43-year-old David Kato was found dead on Wednesday with serious wounds on his head at home in Uganda's capital, Kampala.
Former Anglican bishop who was excommunicated in his country for favoring gay rights, he takes over the service.
Myself, I'm straight. I'm not LGBT, but I've known these people who are LGBT. I respect them for what they are. And I believe they are going to heaven. Amen. Like you others, they are going to heaven. Amen.
So I've not had it really simple, trying to liberate the LGBTI community.
The problem is, I wouldn't want to say that they look at it at a narrow way, but I think some people really have to understand what homosexuality is. It's not all about sex. For them, when they talk about homosexuality, their mind goes to, oh, sex. They think sex. It is more than sex. Friendship, communication, socialism, happiness. That's all it's all about. So it's so unfair.
This kind of macho culture, and you know, it appears to me is one of the reasons why people might be opposed to this homosexuality, which seems to redefine the gender roles of who a woman is, who a woman can be, and who a man can be.
Which part of the Bible preaches such intolerance? Which part of the Quran preaches such intolerance? Which part of the Torah preaches such intolerance? Answer, there is none. We have to have respect and tolerance towards each other, and religious leaders have a very great responsibility to preach respect and tolerance.
And certainly, as a clinician and as a human being, the suggestion that same-sex sexual practice should be in some way punished by the death penalty is completely unacceptable.
Much bigger than a gay rights issue, it's an issue about the civil and human rights, the individual liberties of all Ugandans. If gay people are picked off, who'll be next?
This is not the time to accept LGBT people, homosexual people, but just to tolerate. And then after tolerating, then they can listen and have a dialogue and listen to our side. Then we can strike a balance and live together in a conducive environment.